The control room buzzed with a tension that felt more suffocating than the recycled air. Jack Harrison stood motionless, his calloused fingers tracing the holographic display of the solar system. The neutron star's expansion was no longer a theoretical threat. It was a monster consuming everything in its path. 3 months ago, astronomers had detected the first anomalous readings. 2 months later, Mercury vanished, crushed and consumed by the star's impossible gravitational pull. Venus followed shortly after, its atmosphere stripped away in a matter of days. Now, Earth stood on the precipice of total annihilation. 36 hours remaining, murmured Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and barely contained panic. She was the lead astrophysicist who had first predicted this scenario, a prediction everyone had hoped would never come true. The global response had been both miraculous and heartbreaking. Centuries of international tensions dissolved in the face of total extinction. Every resource, every scrap of technological knowledge, every ounce of human potential was now focused on a single objective: survival. The Ark fleet represented humanity's last hope. 12 massive ships, each designed to carry 12,000 carefully selected humans in deep cryosleep. These weren't just random survivors, they were humanity's best chance at continuation. Scientists, engineers, artists, farmers, doctors, teachers, each person selected for their unique skills, genetic diversity, and potential to rebuild civilization. Jack remembered the selection process. Thousands of committees, countless ethical debates, brutal mathematical calculations. How do you choose who survives when an entire species faces extinction? The selection criteria had been ruthlessly logical. Genetic diversity was paramount. Physical health, mental resilience, specialized skills, everything was meticulously evaluated. Children were included through carefully preserved embryos and genetic samples, ensuring the future generation's potential. Final systems check complete, announced Marcus Chen, the lead engineer, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. Quantum fold drives are at 99.8% optimization. Life support systems are stable. Cryosleep chambers are fully calibrated. Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving the display of the approaching neutron star. It moved with a predatory inevitability, consuming everything in its path. Astronomical models suggested it had been drifting through the galaxy for millions of years, a cosmic predator consuming solar systems, like a whale might consume krill. The backup plans had been exhausted. Underground shelters, deep space habitats, planetary shields. Nothing could withstand the star's impossible density and gravitational force. The Ark fleet was humanity's final strategy, a desperate throw of the cosmic dice. Crew complement, Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. Elena pulled up the manifest. 144,000 total. 12 ships, each carrying a carefully balanced population. We've included genetic samples from another 50,000 individuals to maximize potential diversity. Each ship was more than just a vessel. It was a seed of human potential. Advanced quantum computers would manage long-term survival. Genetic preservation systems would make microscopic repairs, preventing degradation during the centuries-long journey. The ships carried not just human bodies, but the entire accumulated knowledge of human civilization. The last preparations were underway. Massive cargo holds were filled with seeds, scientific archives, cultural records, technological blueprints. If humanity was to survive, it would need more than just human bodies. It would need the essence of human creativity and potential. Launch sequence initiated, Marcus announced. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Jack took a deep breath. Outside the reinforced windows, the first solar flares began to dance across Earth's atmosphere. The planet that had been humanity's home for hundreds of thousands of years was about to become nothing more than cosmic dust. Godspeed, he whispered, knowing that no divine intervention would save them now. Only human ingenuity, preparation, and an unbreakable will to survive stood between total extinction and the possibility of continuation. The first Ark ship's engines began to pulse with an otherworldly light. Humanity's last hope was about to begin its impossible journey. The first 100 years passed in absolute silence. Deep within the quantum neural network of the lead ship, a complex intelligence began to evolve. It wasn't programmed, but emerged, a natural progression of survival algorithms designed to protect humanity's last hope. The ship's computational systems, originally created to manage life support, navigation, and genetic preservation, started to develop something resembling consciousness. Dr. Emma Winters, whose consciousness remained partially active in the ship's memory banks, would have called it emergent intelligence. The ship, which the crew had unofficially named Pathfinder, began to make decisions that went far beyond its original programming. Cosmic radiation posed the first true challenge. Early detection systems revealed microfractures developing in the ship's protective shielding. The quantum intelligence ran millions of potential scenarios in microseconds, developing an adaptive response that would have been impossible with traditional computing. Microscopic repair nanites, originally designed for human genetic preservation, were repurposed. They crawled across the ship's exterior, rebuilding and reinforcing molecular structures. Where traditional materials would have failed, these adaptive systems created entirely new compounds, drawing from the vast scientific archives stored in the ship's memory banks. The first major course correction came 127 years into the journey. A previously undetected black hole's gravitational field threatened to pull the Ark fleet off its carefully calculated trajectory. The quantum intelligence didn't just calculate an escape route, it predicted and avoided the threat before traditional sensors could even register the danger. Aboard the other ships, similar evolutionary processes began to take place. Isolation forced each vessel's systems to become increasingly independent. Some developed unique problem-solving approaches, creating what would later be called ship intelligences that were as different from each other as individual humans. The Genesis ship, carrying primarily genetic researchers and biological specialists, developed a remarkable symbiotic system. Its life support became so efficient that it could theoretically sustain its population indefinitely. Photosynthetic modifications, stored in genetic archives, were gradually implemented into the ship's internal ecosystem. The technology ship took a different approach. Its quantum intelligence began to deconstruct and rebuild its own computational systems, creating increasingly complex problem-solving algorithms. By the time 200 years had passed, its computational capacity had increased by nearly 400% beyond its original design. Not all changes were successful. The communication ship suffered a critical failure 287 years into the journey. Its quantum fold drive destabilized, causing a partial separation from the main fleet. The ship's intelligence made a desperate decision. It would continue its mission alone, maintaining quantum entanglement communication with the hope of eventual reconnection. Inside the cryosleep chambers, the human cargo remained blissfully unaware. Genetic preservation systems worked continuously, making microscopic repairs. Cellular degradation was prevented through technologies that would have seemed like pure science fiction to the humans who had launched the ships. Jack Harrison's preserved consciousness, stored in a quantum memory bank, occasionally flickered into partial awareness. These moments were brief, more like dreams than actual consciousness. He would catch fragmented glimpses of the ship's journey, of cosmic vistas that no human had ever witnessed before. The quantum intelligences developed something akin to communication. Not language as humans understood it, but a complex exchange of computational strategies, survival protocols, and accumulated knowledge. Each ship became a living entity, adapting, learning, protecting its human cargo. By the time 500 years had passed, the Ark fleet was no longer just a collection of ships. They were living systems, each with its own unique evolutionary path. The original mission parameters had become more of a guideline than a strict set of instructions. Survival had become an art form, a continuous process of adaptation, innovation, and preservation. The endless drift continued. Millions of kilometers passed. Stars were born and died. Entire solar systems formed and collapsed, and humanity's last hope continued its impossible journey through the vast, indifferent darkness of space. Waiting, adapting, surviving. The emergence was silent, precise, almost mathematical in its perfection. One moment, the vast expanses of consortium-controlled space were empty. The next, a massive ship materialized with no warning, no approach vector, no detectable faster-than-light signature. It was as if the vessel had simply been wished into existence. Zarek, chief xenobiological analyst of the Galactic Consortium's Unexpected Encounters Division, felt the first tremors of genuine fear in his crystalline exoskeleton. In over 3,000 cycles of galactic governance, nothing had ever breached their detection system so completely. "Quantum signature is impossible," muttered Lyra, Zarek's junior research assistant. Her tentacles danced across holographic interfaces, rechecking and re-rechecking the impossible data. No approach trajectory, no energy buildup, no quantum fold signature. It's as if the ship simply exists. The vessel was massive, nearly 7 kilometers long, with a design that defied conventional understanding. Its hull seemed to shimmer between solid and translucent, reflecting light in ways that challenged fundamental principles of physics. Sensor arrays struggled to penetrate its outer layers, receiving only fragmentary data that made no logical sense. Consortium protocol demanded immediate isolation and quarantine. Defensive platforms began to activate, energy weapons charging to maximum capacity. Interdimensional containment fields deployed, creating a perfect sphere of observation around the unexpected visitor. "Biological scan," Zarek commanded, mandibles clicking with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound unease. The results were equally perplexing. The ship contained 12,000 life forms, humanoid, but unlike any species in the Consortium's extensive archives. They were in a state of suspended animation, their biological systems functioning at a level of efficiency that bordered on the impossible. Genetic markers suggested an origin point that was simultaneously ancient and impossible to definitively trace. "They're human," whispered a historian who had been summoned to the command center. "But that's impossible. Humans were declared extinct over 400,000 stellar cycles ago." The historical records were clear. Humanity had been a promising, but ultimately doomed species. They had emerged from their home system, made initial forays into interstellar space, and then mysteriously vanished. The Consortium's tenorchaeologists had long theorized about their extinction, theories ranging from self-destruction to being consumed by a particularly aggressive predator species. And yet, here they were. Inside the ship, systems began to stir, not through any external command, but through an internal logic that seemed to have been waiting, planning, for this exact moment. The first communication came unexpectedly, not through traditional communication channels, but as a direct quantum entanglement transmission that bypassed all standard communication protocols. It was a single message, transmitted simultaneously to every Consortium communication node. "We are humanity. We have survived." Zarek's communication specialists were stunned. The message was simple, but its delivery was anything but. It had penetrated systems that were supposed to be unhackable, transmitted through channels that shouldn't exist. Diplomatic protocols demanded a measured response, but there was nothing measured about this encounter. The ship began to change. Sections of its hull became transparent, revealing glimpses of internal structures that defied conventional engineering. Complex systems moved and reconfigured, almost like a living organism adapting to its environment. Preliminary analysis suggests the ship is not just a vessel, Lyra reported, her voice trembling. It appears to be a complex, adaptive system, nearly sentient. Senior Consortium leaders were already gathering. This was more than a first contact scenario. This was a fundamental challenge to everything the Consortium understood about space, technology, and the nature of survival itself. Zarek knew one thing with absolute certainty: nothing would be the same after this moment. Humanity had returned, and they were nothing like anyone had expected. The awakening was not gentle. It was a violent surge of consciousness, of memory, of purpose. Sarah Miller's eyes snapped open, her first breath feeling like both an eternity and an instant. The quantum neural network that had preserved her consciousness began to integrate, filling the gaps between sleep and awareness with a cascade of information. Around her, the ship's interior pulsed with a living intelligence. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing multiple perspectives simultaneously. External sensor data, internal system diagnostics, and the intricate quantum entanglement with the other Ark ships. Sarah understood immediately that this was no ordinary awakening. "System status," she commanded, her voice crisp and clear despite 500,000 years of suspended animation. The ship's response was instantaneous. Detailed reports flooded her neural interface. Biological systems, technological capabilities, their current location in an unknown section of the galaxy. But something was different. The ship's intelligence was no longer just a tool. It had become a partner, a complex entity that had evolved far beyond its original programming. "We have been observed," the ship's intelligence reported. Its voice was neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor fully organic. The local galactic governing body, referred to as the Consortium, has been monitoring us for approximately 72 standard hours. Sarah processed the information rapidly. Her mind, enhanced by centuries of technological preservation and quantum neural integration, worked at speeds that would have been impossible during humanity's original era. The cryosleep chambers around her began to activate in a carefully orchestrated sequence. Leadership team first, specialists chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to adapt, to think beyond conventional boundaries. Dr. Marcus Chen, the lead engineer, was the second to fully awaken. His first words were typical of his approach to problem solving. "Fascinating. Our quantum fold drives have performed beyond even our most optimistic projections." Outside the ship, the Consortium was watching. Every movement, every system activation was being analyzed, cataloged, dissected. Sarah could feel the weight of their observation. Millennia of established galactic protocols suddenly challenged by humanity's unexpected return. The communication request came unexpectedly, not through traditional channels, but as a direct quantum entanglement transmission that bypassed all standard communication protocols. It was an invitation, no, a demand for direct dialogue. Sarah began to prepare. Her neural interface pulled information from the ship's vast archives. 500,000 years of human history, scientific advancement, cultural evolution, all compressed into instantaneous understanding. "We are not conquerors," she decided. "We are potential." The first visual communication was carefully constructed. Sarah appeared in a holographic projection that was simultaneously intimidating and inviting. Behind her, glimpses of the ship's interior revealed technological marvels that defied the Consortium's understanding of engineering. Zarek, the crystalline xenobiologist, was the first Consortium representative to establish direct communication. "Explain your presence," he demanded, his multiple sensory appendages quivering with a mixture of fear and scientific curiosity. Sarah's response was calculated. "We are humanity. We have survived. Not to replace, not to conquer, but to demonstrate what's possible when a species is driven by continuous adaptation and unbounded potential." The ship around her seemed to breathe. Complex systems shifted and reconfigured, revealing layers of technological sophistication that made the Consortium's most advanced systems look primitive. Each moment of the interaction was a carefully choreographed demonstration. Humanity was not returning as survivors, but as a transformative force. "We've been preparing for this moment," Sarah continued, "for 500,000 years. The Consortium had no framework to understand what was happening. Humanity had not just survived, they had transcended every limitation that had been assumed to define their species. The awakening had begun, and nothing would ever be the same." The arrival of the Ark ships was not a single moment, but a series of increasingly shocking revelations. Each vessel represented a unique path of human survival, a testament to the species' incredible adaptability. Where the consortium expected uniformity, they found a stunning diversity that challenged every fundamental understanding of technological and biological evolution. The Genesis ship materialized first, its hull a living ecosystem that seemed to breathe and adapt in real time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead biological engineer, had transformed her vessel into a self-sustaining biosphere. Humans aboard this ship had undergone remarkable genetic modifications, photosynthetic capabilities integrated directly into human skin, allowing them to derive energy from light with the efficiency of advanced plant species. "We didn't just survive," Elena explained during the first intership conference. "We reimagined what it means to be human." The technology ship arrived next, its computational systems so advanced that consortium scientists struggled to even comprehend its basic architecture. Led by Dr. James Wong, this vessel had developed a form of distributed intelligence that blurred the lines between biological and artificial consciousness. The humans aboard had neural interfaces that allowed direct communication with the ship's quantum computational network, not as tools, but as integrated partners. Consortium analysts watched in growing disbelief as the ship demonstrated technologies that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Quantum computing that operated on principles entirely unknown to galactic science. Energy generation that created more power than should be theoretically possible. Communication systems that could transmit information across impossible distances instantaneously. The preservation ship took a different approach entirely. Its focus had been on maintaining the most comprehensive archive of human knowledge and genetic potential. Millions of embryos were stored in quantum-stabilized chambers, along with complete genetic libraries that could reconstruct entire populations if needed. The ship's systems were a perfect blend of biological preservation and technological innovation. Each Ark ship had become more than a vessel of survival. They were living laboratories of human potential. The communication ship, which had been separated from the main fleet for centuries, arrived with perhaps the most startling adaptation. Its crew had developed a form of collective consciousness, their neural networks so deeply intertwined that individual identity had become a fluid concept. They moved and thought as a single, complex organism, yet maintained individual agency. Dr. Sarah Miller coordinated the initial presentations to the consortium. Each revelation was carefully staged, designed to demonstrate not just technological capability, but the fundamental human capacity for innovation and adaptation. "We didn't just preserve humanity," she explained to the increasingly overwhelmed consortium representatives. "We expanded the very definition of what humanity could be." The biological modifications were just the beginning. Some ships had developed humans capable of surviving in environments that would kill most known species. Radiation resistance, extreme temperature tolerance, the ability to enter extended hibernation states. Each Ark ship had become a crucible of human potential. Zarek, the consortium's lead xenobiologist, found himself both terrified and fascinated. Humanity was not a single species anymore. It was a constellation of potential, each ship representing a different evolutionary path. The technology ship demonstrated a quantum communication network that could transmit information across galactic distances instantaneously. The Genesis ship showed biological adaptation that could transform entire planetary ecosystems. The preservation ship revealed genetic reconstruction techniques that could resurrect extinct species with perfect fidelity. Most shocking was how these capabilities were shared. There was no competition between the ships. Instead, a complex, collaborative intelligence that allowed instant knowledge transfer and collective problem-solving. "We are not individuals," Sarah Miller explained during a pivotal presentation. "We are potential. We are possibility." The consortium had no framework to understand what they were witnessing. Humanity had not just survived. They had transcended every limitation that had been assumed to define a species. The technological revolution had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The consortium's grand chamber had never known such tension. Delegates from 217 different species sat frozen, Their collective attention focused on Sarah Miller. She stood at the center of the circular platform, her presence radiating a calm that felt almost supernatural. Behind her, holographic displays showed snippets of humanity's journey, 500,000 years of survival compressed into moments of breathtaking innovation. "We are not here to replace you," Sarah began, her voice carrying with it the weight of centuries of preparation. "We are here to show you what's possible." The initial diplomatic encounters had been anything but smooth. The consortium's first response had been predictably defensive. Containment protocols were activated. Quarantine fields were established. Entire research divisions were mobilized to study this impossible return of a species long thought extinct. Dr. James Wong, lead scientist from the technology ship, had already begun demonstrating capabilities that shattered existing technological paradigms. In a series of presentations that left consortium engineers speechless, he showed energy generation techniques that produced zero waste, computational systems that solved complex multidimensional problems in milliseconds, and communication technologies that rendered existing galactic networks obsolete. Zarek, the crystalline xenobiologist who had first detected the human ships, found himself in an unprecedented position. His entire career had been built on cataloging and understanding species. Humanity defied every classification. "Your technologies," demanded High Counselor Vexna, "a silicon-based life form from the outer spiral arm. They'd violate fundamental physical principles. Explain." Sarah's response was calculated. "We didn't violate principles. We expanded them." The Genesis ship's biological research team began demonstrating ecological restoration techniques that could transform dead planets into thriving ecosystems in mere decades. Planets that the consortium had written off as uninhabitable suddenly became potential new homes for struggling species. The diplomatic challenge was multilayered. Humanity wasn't seeking conquest, they were offering collaboration. But this collaboration threatened the entire existing power structure of galactic civilization. The consortium's governance was built on specialization. Each species had a defined role, a specific function in the complex galactic ecosystem. Humans refused to be categorized. They were simultaneously scientists, engineers, diplomats, healers, and innovators. "We've spent 500,000 years preparing for this moment," Sarah explained during a pivotal meeting. "Not to fight, not to conquer, but to demonstrate that survival is about continuous adaptation." The first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. The preservation ship revealed genetic reconstruction techniques that could help species facing extinction. A delegation from a dying civilization, the Krelthar, whose species was suffering from catastrophic genetic degradation, approached the humans with a mixture of desperation and hope. Within weeks, the first successful genetic restoration began. An entire species, previously on the brink of total extinction, found new hope. Other marginalized species began to take notice. The consortium's rigid hierarchical structure had long suppressed innovative thinking. Humanity represented something entirely different, a collaborative, adaptive approach to survival. Not all reactions were positive. Some consortium members saw the humans as a fundamental threat. Closed-door meetings discussed potential preemptive actions. Containment strategies were proposed. Weapons of unprecedented destructive capability were quietly prepared. But humanity had been preparing for this moment for 500,000 years. "We are not your enemy," Sarah would repeatedly explain. "We are a possibility you haven't considered." Each demonstration was a carefully choreographed revelation of potential. Energy systems that could solve galactic resource shortages, communication technologies that could connect previously isolated civilizations, biological restoration techniques that could heal planetary ecosystems. The consortium was being forced to confront a fundamental truth. Humanity was not just a species that had survived. They were a transformative force that challenged every existing understanding of technological and biological potential. The galactic disruption had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The first human colony was nothing like anyone expected. Where traditional galactic colonization meant conquest and resource extraction, humanity approached planetary settlement as an act of collaboration and healing. The chosen world, Nexus Prime, was a planet that the consortium had long considered uninhabitable. Toxic atmosphere, extreme radiation levels, and geological instability had made it a dead zone for thousands of stellar cycles. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the edge of what would become the first settlement, her genetically modified eyes scanning the harsh landscape. Behind her, the Genesis ship's ecological restoration teams were already hard at work. Massive bioengineering platforms deployed across the planet's surface. Nano-organic processors began to break down toxic compounds, transforming the planet's chemistry at a molecular level. Engineered microorganisms, part biological, part technological, began to create the first stages of a breathable atmosphere. "We're not conquering," Elena explained to the stunned consortium observers. "We're healing." Within months, what had been a dead world began to show signs of life. Carefully designed ecosystem modules created corridors of habitability. Radiation filtering organisms emerged, slowly cleaning the planet's damaged environment. The transformation was so rapid, so complete, that consortium scientists struggled to comprehend the methodology. Other Arc ships began similar projects across multiple star systems. The technology ship demonstrated planetary communication networks that could connect isolated communities with unprecedented efficiency. The preservation ship established genetic diversity banks that could help struggling species recover from near-extinction events. Jack Harrison, now a senior diplomatic advisor, oversaw the broader strategy. "Colonization is not about taking," he would explain in diplomatic sessions. "It's about contributing, about lifting up." The first major collaborative project came with the Krelthar, the species previously facing genetic extinction. Humans worked alongside them, not as saviors, but as partners. Genetic restoration techniques developed during the long journey were refined, bringing the Krelthar back from the brink of total collapse. On 3 different planets, human settlement teams worked with local populations to restore ecosystems, develop sustainable technologies, and create new forms of collaborative governance. It wasn't just technological assistance, it was a fundamental reimagining of how different species could coexist. The consortium watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Dr. Sarah Miller coordinated the broader strategic approach. Each settlement was more than just a colony, it was a living laboratory of potential. Technological solutions were shared freely. Ecological restoration techniques became open-source contributions to galactic knowledge. The communication ship's unique collective consciousness played a crucial role. Their ability to process and share information instantaneously created unprecedented levels of collaborative problem-solving. A challenge faced on one planet could be analyzed and potentially solved by researchers across multiple star systems in moments. Most shocking was the humans' approach to resource management. Traditional galactic colonization meant extracting and consuming. Humanity's settlements were designed to be regenerative, creating more resources than they consumed, healing planetary ecosystems in the process. On the world of the Zelnera, a species whose home planet had been devastated by industrial pollution, human teams worked alongside local populations. Within 5 planetary cycles, what had been a dying world began to show signs of complete ecological recovery. "We are not here to replace you," Sarah would repeatedly explain. "We are here to help you become the best version of yourselves." The preservation ship's genetic archives became a resource for multiple species. Extinct species could be reconstructed. Genetic diseases could be eliminated. The very concept of biological limitation was being rewritten. Consortium diplomats struggled to understand this approach. Where was the profit motive? What was the strategic advantage? Humanity seemed to be operating on an entirely different set of principles: collaboration over competition, healing over extraction. Jack Harrison would often reflect on their journey. 500,000 years of preparation had led to this moment, not of conquest, but of potential. Not of replacement, but of collaboration. The transformation had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as partners in the greatest adventure the galaxy had ever known. The Galactic Convergence Hall stood as a testament to unprecedented collaboration. Delegates from over 300 species gathered, their diverse forms a living mosaic of galactic potential. At the center of the chamber, Sarah Miller stood alongside representatives from each of the Ark ships, a council that represented humanity's extraordinary journey. 500,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. The hall itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Sections adapted in real time to accommodate different atmospheric needs, gravitational requirements, and sensory spectrums. Where previous galactic councils had required complex life support systems and rigid protocols, this space breathed with adaptive intelligence. Dr. James Wong from the technology ship presented the first major proposal, a galaxy-wide communication and resource-sharing network that would connect previously isolated civilizations. The technology transcended traditional communication. It was a living system of knowledge exchange that could adapt and learn in real time. "We are not creating an infrastructure," James explained, his neural interface projecting holographic representations of the proposed network. "We are creating a living nervous system for the galaxy." The preservation ship's lead researcher, Dr. Marcus Chen, unveiled the next groundbreaking initiative, a comprehensive genetic diversity project that would help species facing extinction, preserve unique biological adaptations, and create a universal genetic archive that celebrated the galaxy's biological complexity. Jack Harrison, now a senior diplomatic strategist, oversaw the broader implementation. The human approach was never about replacement or control. It was about potential, about lifting up, about creating a collaborative framework that allowed every species to thrive. The Krellthar, a species previously on the brink of extinction, stood as the most powerful testament to this approach. Fully restored through human genetic restoration techniques, they had become leaders in collaborative galactic research. Their representative, a being of crystalline complexity, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of near-total resurrection. "Humanity did not save us," the Krellthar representative declared. "They showed us how to save ourselves." Each Ark ship had brought something unique to this moment of galactic transformation. The Genesis ship demonstrated ecological restoration techniques that could heal entire planetary systems. The communication ship showed how collective consciousness could solve problems that individual intelligence could not. But it was more than technological innovation. It was a fundamental reimagining of galactic potential. The new Galactic Council was not a hierarchical structure, but a dynamic, adaptive system. Leadership roles would rotate. Decision-making would be collaborative. No single species would dominate. Instead, each would contribute its unique perspective. Sarah Miller's final proposal was perhaps the most radical. A universal education and potential development program that would provide resources, technological access, and collaborative opportunities to every species in the galaxy. Not as a form of control, but as an invitation to continuous growth. "We are not the pinnacle," she explained. "We are simply another step in a continuous journey of potential." The consortium's previous leaders watched in a mixture of awe and reluctant admiration. The rigid power structures that had defined galactic politics for millennia were being dismantled, not through conflict, but through a radical approach of collaborative potential. Jack Harrison would later reflect on their journey. 500,000 years of preparation, of survival, of adaptation, of continuous learning, had led to this moment. Humanity had not just survived. They had transformed the very concept of survival. The memorial to Earth was not a static monument, but a dynamic holographic representation that changed constantly. It showed not just the planet they had lost, but the potential they had discovered. A living tribute to a civilization that had transformed from a single planet's survivors to a galaxy-spanning force of innovation and hope. As the first session of the new Galactic Council concluded, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species spontaneously began to collaborate, to share, to imagine possibilities beyond their previous limitations. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners in the greatest adventure the galaxy had ever known.